Hi, welcome to another knee-jerk reaction video review. These are video reviews that I do right after I watch the movie, so it is a knee-jerk reaction. This is a little bit different format than I've done in the past because I'm using a different device. And there is a cat that keeps rubbing up against my tripod, so if it shakes or moves, that's because of the cat. So I try not to give spoilers, but I like to talk about the movies. So if you're not into spoilers, you might not want to watch this because I may spoil something for you. But the movie I watched is called Time Trap. Now I saw this advertised like a year ago, but I couldn't remember the name of it. And I'm really into time travel type movies. And when I saw the previews, I thought, oh man, that's one I want to see. And it's an independent film, and no offense, but it had people in it I've never heard of. All the main characters, never heard or seen them before. But they did a great job. I've always said that, there's two movies that are easy to review. One is one that you've hated, and one is one that you've loved. And this is one that I love, so it's going to be easy to review. It's been a while. I've been binge watching TV series. I've watched like the first three seasons of Cheers, and I'm into the first three seasons of Third Rock from the Sun. So it's been a long time since I simply sat down and watched a movie where, I don't review movies where I put the movie on and like I'm doing the dishes or sweeping the floor. So this is the first time in a long time I've actually sat down and watched a movie because I knew this was a movie I wanted to see. But the name says it all. It's a time trap. These people go into a cave and they realize that time moves differently in the cave. And it's exactly the kind of thing I would write. And I just love that. It's very linear. It's typical fish out of water. These are average, everyday people. They have to figure out what's going on with average, everyday knowledge. Nobody was a super genius. Nobody had to look something up. They just figured things out on their own, and I like that. I like that linear progression of a story. I also liked how it starts out them trying to figure out, well, why did the rope break, and then, what's that noise over there, and then it just keeps building and progressing, and then they realize, that the daylight flashes aren't daylight flashes; they're solstice flashes, and I mean, it's really neat. And so let me start with the acting. The acting was great. I mean, at no time did I feel like I was watching, B-list actors in a B-list movie. I mean, I have no complaints about that. They were great. These people are just starting out. Of course it's a movie, so they're all overly good looking, but I think some of these people got futures, and I had no complaints about the acting. Even the kids, there's some kids in the movie and they acted great. Now, sometimes I felt like I was watching like a made-for-TV movie because there were some parts, there's a part where this guy gets his head bashed in. I'm like, oh, that's going to be so gory. Then they show it and his head's not bashed in, it's just bloody. And I'm like, no, he was bashed, that head should have been a pancake. And they show him and it wasn't a pancake. But every part of the story, I have a few nitpicks, and as I was setting my camera up, I realized that the things I was going to nitpick made logical sense because it's a science fiction story. So first of all, you have to suspend belief and believe in the fact that this cave stops time. And then, that's fine. And then as long as the story stays within that framework and follows its own rules, you're perfectly entertained and it's perfectly beautiful. And at first I was like, well, this happened and that doesn't make logical sense within the framework. But as I was setting my camera up, I thought, oh, it does, it really does, because they're sitting there and they're watching the sun go by and they realize it's not the sun going by. It's, the sun is like a long line in the sky. And they realize, well, that can't be the sun because it's a long line. And they realize the sun is going so fast that it is a long line. And the flashes are the sun going back and forth across the horizon. So every flash wasn't a day, it was a year. And, so this is something they figured out going along. I'm like, oh, that's so cool the way they figured that out. And it's something I didn't see at first. I didn't catch it. I was kind of looking at it going, well, that doesn't look right. But then when they explained it, I was like, oh, yeah, that's perfectly that makes sense. And but there's a point where someone crawls out of the cave, and so they're back in normal time, and then they go back into the cave. And I'm thinking, well, for the people in the cave, probably 100 years just went by. But then, no, it didn't. It makes logical sense because she went out in her daytime. Time is frozen in the cave. She could have gone out for 30 years and came back in the cave. She was still going to come in at the point she left because time is frozen in the cave. So it did make sense. And there was another part where, they didn't all enter the cave together, but the cave freezes time. And like when they first started showing the cavemen, I was like, well, now they're going backwards in time. But no, the cavemen fell in and they were frozen in time. So it's like no matter what in the history of the cave, whatever goes in, everybody in the cave is it's gonna appear from their point of view that everybody arrived at the same time. And if you watch the movie, that makes logical sense. That's the way it was set up. There's the cavemen, there's conquistadors, there was a cowboy, the hippies, the professor, and the kids. They all go into the cave at different times, but from their points of view, they all arrive at the same time, and they're all trying to figure out what's going on. And and then the guy from the future. One of the things, and I love the movie. Don't get me wrong, I love the movie, but it's not like I'm looking for things to nitpick. But I mean, these are things that I would have done if I were making the movie. And one was, there was a van that had been abandoned for like 20 years, and I've seen vehicles that have been abandoned for like 20 years, and they're not in that great a shape. They were able to open the doors and open the back hatch, and I'm like, no, that car would have been a solid piece of rust. The tires would have all been flat, and I understand this was an indie movie, so they probably didn't have the budget for that. But that was one thing I noticed that just made me click and go, oh wait, that's because those are the things I do. I watch a movie, I'm entertained, and I try to suspend my thoughts and just watch the movie and enjoy it. Just sometimes you see something, you're like, oh, that can't be right. The other thing is, I would have, and this is just me, this is nothing wrong with the movie, but if I was writing it, I would have had this area have rare animals and maybe be known for super rare animals or for cryptid sightings, because you can go in and out of the cave, and I could just picture like a dinosaur going into this cave, and the dinosaur being in the cave from the dinosaur's point of view for a few hours, but coming out in modern times, and then someone might spot a dinosaur. But I would have had the area be more mystic and more, hey, this is the area where they spotted strange lizard creatures, and that's just me, or oh, there was a saber-toothed tiger spotted here just a few years ago, and just because anything can enter the cave and leave the cave, and I just thought that would be one way to do it. And there was 3 entrances to the cave, and one was a walk-in entrance, so it makes sense. The other 2 entrances, it was a drop-down. Animal wouldn't have made it out of there, but at least one was a walk-in where you could walk in and walk out. So that was just me. That's just something I would do. The other thing, and those are nothing. Those are nothing. Don't even think about those when you're watching the movie. That's just me. The only thing that bugged me was in the very end of the movie. Of course, they're frozen in time, and thousands of years have passed. So they're rescued by future humans. We're assuming future humans. They look very alien, but future humans are going to look alien, and but they didn't rescue everybody. And I'm just going to assume that they went back and got the rest. But it was just a little tingling in my, when they ended it, and I was like, wait a minute, they left a guy behind. Where is this guy? It's the guy from the future, and they even mentioned him, like, he's unconscious, and they're like, let's. What are we going to do with him? He was helpful, and then the cavemen attack, and they run away, and they never went back for him, and then they get rescued, and the aliens had the ability to go into the cave and pull people out, but there was no indication that this guy got rescued. And what I would have loved to see is at the end when they were all reunited, because this guy couldn't breathe their atmosphere. And that was another thing I love was, people don't realize that over the course of the Earth's history, the atmosphere has changed. So the people from different times were having trouble breathing the air, from the different times. So I was like, that makes sense, and that was a really good catch on those. And maybe, I don't know if they had some kind of advisor on this, but that was a good catch to have the guy from the thousands of years in the future, have trouble breathing, and but I just feel like at the end I was like, oh God, they left that guy there. He's frozen at times, so I guess it doesn't hurt. But I mean, they could have went back for him. It would have been cool at the end to see, at the end they all kind of gathered together and realizing they're in the future. But it would have been cool to see some of the cavemen standing there and the guy from the future standing there. Maybe a conquistador, maybe the cowboy, because the cowboy at that point had died, but the waters in the cave could bring you back to life. So it would have been cool to see some of these other characters that weren't part of the group, but still get rescued by these future people. And that was one thing at the end. I'm just going to assume they did and they didn't show it because I don't know, that bugs me that they left them behind. Other than that, I mean, that's the only real nitpick I have. The other things are nothing. They're just things that I would do if I were making the movie. But another thing I would have done, just me again, I would have had more people, because this cave is frozen in time and people enter it and they never leave. I mean, like I said, they had cavemen, they had conquistadors, because they were looking for the fountain of youth, and the cave that stops time would be a fountain of youth. The professor's parents, that happened 20 years earlier. There was a cowboy. I think that was a cowboy. The guy with the gun was a cowboy, I'm assuming, because they called him that at one point. And then the guy from the future. But I would thought at some point somebody else might have dropped in. Maybe this one of the kids' niece that wasn't born yet come looking for him, or just another party, or someone panning for gold. Because of over the course of the whole human history, of course, there's a point where humans stopped coming because the human race apparently got wiped out on Earth. But I don't know. I just would have felt better if there was one person from the future, but maybe a few more. But overall, I mean, this movie entertained me. I loved it. There should have been gore, but there wasn't gore. It was very clean, very good-looking actors, and they acted very well. I am pleased with this movie. If this was a 5-star rating, this would be 5 out of 5 stars. So yeah, this is a rave review. Don't get me wrong. I'm always nitpicking, and that's just me giving my thoughts. But no, I love this movie. I think everyone will enjoy it. It came out in 2017, I think. And like I said, I saw the previews, and I was like, I gotta watch this movie. But then I couldn't remember the name. And every time I Google, like, a time movie in a cave, dozens of movies would come up, and none of them looked right. But this just popped up on Netflix, and like just within a day or two. And I thought, oh, that's the movie I wanted to see. And I watched it. I'm very pleasantly surprised with it. I'm happy. It entertained me, so it gets 5 stars out of 5. 5 cavemen. What's a good rating for a time movie? 5 hourglasses out of 5. Because I never give the same rating for the movies. But yeah, pleasantly surprised. I can't. Everything good about the movie is just something you got to watch. It progresses. They do act in realistic ways. I don't know, just everything was, it was well written. I never had any complaints about the dialogue. Nothing seemed silly. They were talking naturally. So yeah, I like this movie, and I'm going to recommend it. It's called Time Trap, and it's on Netflix right now. It was on Amazon, apparently, but it was like $4 on Amazon. But I would recommend it. This might be a movie. I normally don't watch movies over and over again. There's only a couple movies I've ever done that. But this is, I think I'm going to do a repeat viewing on this one. I really liked it that much. So anyway, Time Trap on Netflix. I'm Star Thinker. Don't forget to go to Amazon and buy my books, because that pays for all this stuff behind me. And, have a good evening, and I have to head out to work. That's why I'm doing this on my phone quickly. But this has been a knee-jerk review, of The Time Trap.